Hello and welcome to Make the Logo Bigger. My name is Brenton. This podcast is your gateway into the world of advertising production, crafted especially for those who are stepping in new, aiming to become producers, or simply eager to understand the inner workings of advertising and marketing. We're here to share insights and knowledge you've been looking for, with stories, tips, and real conversations from the pros. We're simplifying the process for everyone with a production curiosity. Whether you're just starting out or keen to explore the production side of ads, you've found the right place. Let's jump in. Today on the show, we chat with Matt Stoddart, the Executive Creative Director at TBWA. Matt has spent over 2 decades challenging the conventions of his profession. From humble beginnings as a graphic designer in Christchurch, New Zealand, to his current role as ECD, Matt's career has been determined by his commitment to craft, innovation, and an unrelenting hunger. His accolades, including Cannes Lions, Spikes, and a yellow pencil, speak to the impact of his work, but it's his philosophy and approach is what truly sets him apart. In the episode, Matt shares how he navigates the delicate balance between creative chaos and structure, why staying hungry is essential for young creatives, and how to spot the magic in an idea, even when it's just some scribble on a scrap of paper. He delves into the role of producers as creative partners, the art of collaboration with directors, and the lessons he's learned from crafting campaigns like the award-winning VLine Guilt Trips. You'll also hear his perspective on how to lead team members, the importance of being relentless with your work ethic, and how to build a career that's not just successful, but hopefully truly satisfying. Matt Stoddart. Matt Stoddart, welcome, mate. So grateful to have you on, chat all things creative, advertising and production. Hopefully, I'll get you to quickly run us through your journey in the ad game, from start to where you are now. But before that, what I wanted to mention is just a couple of notable highlights for you. And I'm sure you're a humble man, so please let me do the honours, Matt. So 20 plus years in the caper. You've got the receiver of multiple industry awards, 1 Cannes Grand Prix for effectiveness, 11 Cannes Lions, a yellow pencil, 4 Spike Grand Prix. You're the chair of the Advertising Industry Advisory Board of RMIT. Now, that is a very impressive resume. Did you ever think when you started out that you'd achieve all these accomplishments?
No, not at all. When I guess I came out of a graphic design and multimedia bachelor, I thought I was going to be a graphic designer and probably stay in Christchurch. I'm originally from New Zealand, so from Christchurch. I never had any aspirations or dreams of moving to Australia and moving to a bigger city and a bigger industry, anything like that. I thought I'd just work at a design agency somewhere in Christchurch and go from there. I'm really, blessed by what I've been able to achieve and the people I've worked with to get to where I am along my journey. It's a wonderful industry, advertising, and it's a lot more. I think my creative outlet has had a much bigger place to shine than I probably would have had if I just stayed within the design the design space. Yeah.
So you started the design, and then obviously you progressed through the ad industry and different organisations. Do you want to give us a quick run through of from when you started in graphic design to then where you are today at TBWA?
Yeah, sure. So started in Christchurch, came out of a design multimedia bachelor straight into a small agency. I was lucky enough to get offered a job from my graduation night, which was nice. Worked there for a year or so and then got my first break into an agency in Christchurch. And then I got that job from being at an awards night in Christchurch for the South Island Advertising Awards. And then my CD, I won an award for like an up-and-coming talent kind of thing. And I got offered a job at the bar. Two job offers in a row. At that point, I'd never had a job interview, which was weird. And then, so worked at a small agency. It was originally FCB Christchurch, but it was bought out by a couple of partners, and they did their own thing. And so I worked there for around 4 years. Did some good stuff, but I got to that point where I was looking at the likes of Wellington and Auckland and some of the bigger agencies up there like Colenso and BPO and DDP, and seeing all the awesome and global work that they were producing, and reflecting on where I was in Christchurch. And a lot of our clients were more local. We did some great work with some tourism brands out of Queenstown, like AJ Hackett, Bungie, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I was at this moment where I just felt like creatively I'd plateaued and I needed to throw myself back in the deep end. So jumped over the ditch to Melbourne, sort of shot myself around for a few months and ended up lucky enough to sneak in the side door at BPO and was working at Clemenger Proximity off the back of them winning the NAB account, actually. So spent 3.5 years within the BBDO network, and then I got offered a role at Wonderman, working alongside the CD there, Stanley Johnson. So a really small creative department, and Wonderman was more, I guess, digital and direct and data focused, which was, I really took an interest in it because when I started working at Clemenger Proximity, I'd come from an agency which was, I guess, more through the line traditional, and then Proximity again was much more direct and digitally focused. And I really found that I liked that. I had no idea that I liked that one-to-one interactive, getting that direct response from people, from ideas you have. I really got a buzz out of that. Going over to Wonderman was going to up my skill in terms of using data to really target people, and then also just that opportunity to work alongside a CD we're kind of a working team, as well as having a junior team that worked under us. So it was a very small team, and then I guess just sponging as much as I could from him as a leader, but just seeing how he functioned day to day, seeing just learning as much as I could. As I said, just sponging as much as I could, and seeing what I needed to do to elevate myself into more of a senior position from where I was, which was great. So learned a heap from there. But then again, I got that itch. I was like, I need to push myself a bit further. And by that point, we had actually brought on another senior creative who I'd teamed up with, Understand. So I actually formed a team, Understand. And then me and my partner, Tash, we worked together for a while. And then I got the itch on. My memory's a bit hazy there. Then we jumped over to McCann, which was an interesting spot. McCann had always been the place. They were kind of quiet. I don't think they were sort of just ticking along, and they hadn't done a huge amount of stuff that was really, putting them in the spotlight for a long time. And I remember when I got offered a job there, I spoke to some people and were like, not sure. But what had happened there was they just bought out Smart, which was a little indie agency that was punching above its weight, and the crew from Smart had come over, so Ben Lilly and John Meskel and a bunch of other people, and they were basically like, we're going to give McCann a shake-up, and we want you guys to come over and be our senior integrated team. We came over, and I guess we were part of that wave of McCann just smashing it. I wasn't a part of Dumb Ways to Die, but I saw it from its birth to its fruition. We did some great campaigns, and I think I was only there for a year and a half, but I think I've got 3 or 4 pieces of work in my book still from when I was there. So that ended up being a really great move. And then from there, I came to TBWA. So joined here as a senior art director, and then I've been here for 10 and a half years. It'll be 11 years in January, and now the ECD. So worked my way up from senior creative to CD to group creative director, and now ECD. Yeah, I love it. I love it here. It's a really great agency.
Well, yeah. It's a hell of a journey that you've been on. And going back to when you started, so let's go all the way back to, you started as graphic designer, and then when you moved into creative, became art director. Is it something that, I always find it interesting, particularly for people who are listening, is it something that you were just always inherently able to, that you felt that you had a knack for, the visual medium, seeing how things are laid out, particularly when you look at like a 16:9 or a page, or is it something you had to really work on?
No, I think I had always had a visual artistic talent. It's weird to say that because, I don't want to, you don't like to go to your own horn, but as a kid, like I always loved drawing and painting, and I always had a sense of creativity and building things and taking things apart and figuring out how things, go together, that kind of thing. So when I got to studying design in high school, I really felt like, this is, I can really feel something inside me that's like, this is what you need to be doing. Like, I really gravitated towards it. I loved it. And, I'd be in the art design class at lunchtime, like crafting my folio while my mates were out playing cricket and rugby and whatever else, just because I was like, I really wanted to just to do really well in my final year of high school. So then landing in that design job, I just I thought, this is what I want to do. And it wasn't until we had a client, it was a non-for-profit client, and they got given some free ad space on the back of a bus. So the brief that I got given was to come up with an idea for the back of this bus. It wasn't just a design. And I was like, oh, okay, I've never had this challenge of thinking of an idea for a design before. And the brief was for an animal cruelty company. The brief was around broiler chickens, so those chickens that get all jammed inside those sheds. And that idea is what got me the job at the agency that I ended up getting into. So, and I remember when I got the job, I told my parents, I'm like, oh, I'm the art director. And they're like, oh, that can't be right, because it sounds like a very senior title because it's got the word director in it. But yeah. So I guess, I've always had a creative, visual creative outlet, much more than I guess writing. So I knew art direction was definitely my thing, not writing specifically.
How did you adapt to working with the written word? Did you find you were okay with that, or is it something you kind of more had to work at?
Yeah, I think right from the beginning, I could always write headlines. I think there's always that funny tension between a writer and an art director, that often the art director will write a better headline than the writer, because the writer will try and overwrite it, but the art director will say it in its simplest form sometimes. So I never had any problem with writing headlines and that kind of thing. So I guess now I'm at the point where I'm an ECD, and I'm I guess directing not only art directors, which I find obviously much easier because it's my initial medium, but writers as well. I think in terms of, I guess, like the purity of craft of being a writer, I still, especially with some of the juniors, I still lean on some of our really experienced senior writers that help mentor them, and I get them to help. But in terms of providing direction to them, it's still about distillation of ideas and simplicity and not overwriting things. And as you said, you definitely, along the way, you become more accustomed to longer form things like scripts and storytelling and that kind of thing. And while I can, I might not be as good as reading a script and saying, oh, that the literacy of that or the way that's written isn't quite right, or that comma shouldn't be there. Like I'm not going to be able to do, often I can't quite do that, but I can definitely say, oh, it feels like you're overcooking this story here, or you can simplify it, or it's the narrative or the flow of the story feels a little bit off. Like maybe you need to change. Like I can, like that kind of direction, I think, which is probably the most important. I've definitely grown my skills and to be able to provide and produce, have the creatives, create the best ads they can. I guess that's what I can hope for. I still, I really like to. I don't try and change my creators' work too much. I really want to make sure that they're bringing their pure perspective to it, and I'm just helping to shape that. Otherwise, every ad that came out that I was ECD of would just be something that would look like what I would do. And it defeats the purpose of having all these amazing creatives bringing their own amazing perspectives.
And what's your process like now that you're an ECD and you've been through that journey? How do you set it up for your team members to take that away and succeed? Have you got a strategy, or have you got a formula that you like to use?
Yeah, well, we do. Yeah, so it's weird to talk about creativity as a formula, but there is, I guess, some kind of subconscious formula to it. I think at TBWA specifically, we always start by identifying conventions. So these can either be category conventions or cultural conventions, and then I guess we work out which ones to disrupt. So you might have heard disruption before. So that's a registered trademark of TBWA. It was coined by our chairman, Jean-Marie Drew, in the 90s. And I think at the time it had largely a negative meaning of being a disturbance or an interruption. But we've taken that and we use it to sort of find what those conventions are, find out what the vision of where we want to be, and then work out what that disruption is to get to a really amazing creative place. So strategically, that's always the backbone of where we start. And then I guess when we land with creatives, it's really interesting now, especially coming out of COVID, with a lot of creativity being done on screens. A lot of people use Google Slides. There's still a lot of remote meetings, that kind of thing. So slides are obviously really handy, but it became really apparent to me when we all came back from being locked down I'm not sure whether you would have felt that as much as we did down here in Melbourne, but everybody was just on screens. And, when I came up as a creative, it was always paper. It was always pen on paper and boards. And so I've worked really hard, especially with the juniors, and the seniors do it automatically because they just prefer being on paper anyway. But just to get them back onto paper and back onto the board, so you're putting your ideas up on the wall and you can see all your thinking all in one big board or two boards or whatever, and you can see it all and you can actually get a really good feel of what's right, what's wrong, and you look through it and see the flow of it and see whether the ideas are colliding or whether the ideas are contradicting each other or whatever it might be, whether that insight needs to be sharpened a bit more, or whether these headlines don't feel like they're coming enough off that specific idea. Like, I think that way of working, I don't know how other agencies are doing it, whether they're still working within slides, but you just can't do that through slides. Like, you're scrolling through and looking at different pages and things. It just doesn't, you could easily miss some of these really obvious things when they're up on boards. So that part of the process I really encourage our creatives to use to make sure they are just keeping it pure, not getting distracted by visuals and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then I guess from my perspective, then I will see what they've got. I'll come in and sit with them, work with them. I usually start with asking them what they're liking the most. Often they'll have lots of ideas, and there'll be chaos on the board. And I always like to start with what ideas are you liking the most? Like, where are you really getting drawn towards? Just to start to get a feel for that, and we work through those. Sometimes the ones that they really like might not be right, and sometimes they might have a piece of paper down the bottom that's just a thought that I'll be like, that's the one. Like I said, there's no real process to it. Sometimes the idea can just be that weird little thing on the bottom of the board on a scrap piece of paper, and that is the big idea. And then after that, like, once you've landed on that big idea, it's just bringing in all the people within the agency to just elevate it. So using all of their skill sets to just make the idea the best it can be, which is really the fun part when you get into that execution phase, and the producers step in, and you start bringing all these other amazing creatives and their perspectives to just grow it even more.
And obviously to elevate always is the fun part, actually seeing something come to fruition. Just to back up on what you were saying, you said an idea could sometimes even just be like a thought on a piece of paper. Has there ever been an idea that you've just put down on a piece of paper, or it's been a scrap or a thought that has actually come and eventuated into a campaign that just, exceeded your expectations?
I don't think for me I've ever had one of those things where I've had a little scrap piece of paper and then it's been something that hasn't been one of the key thoughts and then it's grown. But I've seen it happen. Like, it's happened within this agency, and it's worked up being a really big campaign. So this happened just before I started here, but I caught the back end of it. But when we had ANZ as a client, and I don't like to talk about ANZ too much because we've got NAB now. So
we'll just say it's a bank. When we had a bank.
When we had another bank, they were working on a brief for the Mardi Gras, and you probably already seen where this is going now. And I think the brief was just to do a program ad for the Mardi Gras program. And ANZ were like a principal sponsor. They've been a sponsor for many, many years. But the brief was just to do this ad. And Paul Reardon, our CCO, he was like, surely we can do something bigger and better with this amazing partnership that we've had with this amazing organisation for so long. So the brief went into the agency, the creative department, to come up with something bigger and better. And I think it was a fairly open brief. Like I said, I wasn't there at that point. I'm just recollecting, the stories that I've heard along the way. And there was, multiple rounds of the creatives having different ideas and that kind of thing, and they weren't quite right for whatever reason. And then one of the creatives just walked up to Paul in the hallway. I think he might have been walking to another meeting, and he just done a little scribble on a piece of paper, and he said, "What about this?" And it just had a little picture of an ATM with some bedazzlements and things on it, just said ATMs, and he's like, "That is it. That is the idea."
So what about this? I know, and just keep sticking in this realm about, ideas or knowing. As an ECD, as you've worked your way up, is it pretty easy for you now to identify when the idea has been hit or struck? Is it apparent?
Yeah, I think it is. It's a weird feeling, and I talk about this a lot with Paul Reardon. You just have this feeling as a I guess as a CD or an ECD or whatever, when you're creatively leading the work, when a team shows you something and you just get this like, I don't know, it's like a tingle or it's just a gut feel, and you go, oh, there's magic in that. There's just something about that, and you go, oh, that is the one. And it's a weird thing because it's probably something that's built up over many years of being in the industry and working on lots of ideas yourself. But at the end of the day, it's still I guess a highly educated guess, a highly informed guess, I guess you'd say, because you still never know whether that's exactly going to be the right idea or whether that will be it. Like you just have this gut feel where you go, out of everything that I know, everything I've experienced, and this feels like this is the one we need to go with. It also helps when the people around you who are very senior as well also go, oh yeah, they feel it too. So that's a good safety net for a CD or an ECD. But yeah, you do get that gut feel, and I think it comes down to that level of perspective. I talk about this a lot with some of our senior teams or mid to senior teams who I guess are aspiring to be CDs one day, and I sort of say to them, I'm like, me being a CD or an ECD, it's not because I was the best creative or anything like that. I think being a really good creative doesn't make you a good CD. What you realize is that a good CD is someone who knows how to get the best out of other people. I didn't even realize that when I got made a CD. I guess TBWA recognized to me that I was producing great work with my partner S.1, and they said, we want the other teams to be producing work like this, so we want you guys to be CDs. And it was a real shock to the system, especially at TBWA, where at the time there was a lot of teams who were much more experienced and much older than I was, and then trying to tell them that I didn't think their ideas were right, or I needed to go again, or whatever it might be. That was tough. I tell you what. At the end of the day, it is that perspective that you have, because you're not close to the problem, you're not close to the ideas, so you have this sort of like elevated view where they're really close to the nitty gritty nature of the brief, and they've been sweating it, and then you come in, you kind of go, okay, I can see where you've been, see where you're going, but I can see it's not quite right. But because I'm not so close to it, I can say, this one's really close, but why don't you just do that? And then the juniors especially go, oh my God, like, how did you do that? And it's like this magic, and it's like, you literally just have the benefit of perspective. It's obviously, like I said, it's experience, that kind of thing as well.
Matt, so what about the Cairn Grand Prix for effectiveness? What award was that given to? Which campaign was that for?
So that was for VLine Guilt Trips. So that was one of the campaigns that I did when I was at McCann with my writer Natasha Wood, and that was an unexpected one actually, because the original brief for that was just an EDM and a print ad for like a magazine that VLine advertised in. And the brief was targeting children, like kids, like who live in the country and moved to the city and need to come back to visit their parents more via the VLine. So the brief was to target kids with these print ads and the EDMs. And my writer and I looked at that brief, and we first of all, we solved it. So we said, right, here's the EDM and here's the print ad that you've asked for. But then before we went to our CD, we just were like, this doesn't feel quite right. Like, it doesn't feel like this is going to work, because we really put ourselves in the perspective of these kids who have moved to the city, and we're like, this isn't going to. If you're in the city and you want to be encouraged to go on the train, especially not in the car, there's going to need to be something a little more interesting than this. So we actually flipped the strategy, and rather than targeting the kids, we targeted the parents. So we came up with this idea of guilt trips, so the guilt trip ticket. So allowing and giving parents the tools to guilt their kids to visit their parents in the country. And we created a whole bunch of different things. We had all these different out-of-home ads, and they were all based on guilt. So like, Joan's son visited him yesterday. Isn't she nice? Joan's son visited her yesterday. Isn't he nice? Like, all these little guilty lines, and they're all brought to life with a lot of color and shape. But we, when we presented to the client, they were just expecting to see this EDM and this print ad, and we basically showed them this whole integrated campaign with a complete flip of the strategy. And it was just one of those moments where the CMO was new, and the client that we had been wanting to do something different for ages, and just the timing was perfect, because the new CMO was like, this is exactly the kind of thing we need to be doing. So the budget went from being probably quite small, I can't remember how much it was, to probably 10 times as much. And then we produced multiple web films, print ads. We made country women's associations guidebooks on how to, efficiently guilt children. Lots of different things, and it went gangbusters. We created a whole microsite where you could create your own customized guilt trips, and the effectiveness of it was what really made it sing. But we had had a heap of fun doing it. So that was an idea that came out of a brief that was not a shiny big budget brief. It was a really tiny little brief, tiny little budget, and then we saw something else in it, which I think is something I always encourage the creatives to do.
And on that part, just so for people that are listening at home, with the Cairn Grand Prix for effectiveness, specifically recognising campaigns that deliver exceptional business results and demonstrate high levels of effectiveness in achieving strategic objectives, undergoing rigorous evaluations where judges assess both the creativity of the work and its effectiveness in meeting well-defined goals. Now, my question about that, what was the biggest yacht you sailed on when you were in Cairn?
The biggest yacht. So I actually didn't go to Cannes for winning that. They have this sort of unspoken rule where if you win a gold or higher at Cannes, you get to go next year. But I left McCann, so I kind of shot myself in the foot with that one, so I didn't get to go the next year. But I have been to Cannes once, and I was lucky enough to go when we had one of our really lovely another Mardi Gras idea that year, and it won a gold. So I not only got to go to Cannes, I got to do the stage walk and collect too, which was pretty awesome. I think it's pretty rare, I think, for especially creatives in Australia and New Zealand, where Cannes a long way away. It's a very expensive trip. Obviously, if you're in Europe, you can jump on a Rex or whatever it is, and it's not too much. You can fumble your way there pretty cheaply, but to be there and to be there when you win something was pretty special.
We've talked about campaigns. You were talking about, the VLine campaign just before, and you've created a lot of work in your time, but has there been any campaigns outside of your own that you thought were just amazing?
Yeah, all the time. It's there's you always see stuff that's like, man, I wish I did that. I think one recently, and I can't remember whether it was last year or the year before. It was called I Am Stevenage, and it was an idea for Burger King. So they found a loophole where if you sponsor a team in the real world, your brand is on the jerseys of the players in FIFA.
The video game?
The video game. So they sponsored Stevenage, which is a really tiny little town. They sponsored their team, and that team is in FIFA. So they got their logos onto the team Stevenage in the game, and then via social, they encouraged people to use that team and play it in the game and then post it on social. So, and then you got free burgers, basically. Like if you use Stevenage and you post it on social, you got a free burger in it. Went absolutely gangbusters to the point where people were they were using this team, and good players were then moving that team up through the divisions and getting them to be like the Premier League winners. And then all along the way, they're drafting and all these other players. So you're getting these social videos of the Stevenage team with the Burger King logos all on their chests, and it was like Messi and Ronaldo and all the most amazing players, which would cost millions and millions of dollars to have those people wearing your logo. And they're all, because it's all digital, they all are very lifelike because the graphics these days are so amazing. All wearing the Burger King logo. And I just thought that was so clever and so simple to find that loophole. I can't remember what it won. It won a lot of awards, but it was really, I'm so jealous of that idea.
I usually leave this question for the end, but it's advice for newcomers. Now, it can be for creatives and it can be for, this is production centric, but for anyone really starting out, have you got any advice for newcomers?
Yeah, creatives. Oh man, I think my one key piece of information, my one key, I guess, piece of guidance for new creatives is just hunger. The amount of, I often see and hear about young creatives who have this hunger and passion, and then they get in the door and then they just become a little bit complacent. They just sort of then just relax and they start going through the motions and they're not pushing themselves as much as they would. They kind of lose that fire. Some don't, but then some do. And I think one thing I really try and make sure I let them know how important it is to just stay hungry. Like, do not rest. Like, always try and do the best you can. Spend more time on something you think deserves it. Like, work those late nights if you've got a brief that you think has got an opportunity. Like, never, especially as a young creative, never rest. Like, just keep being hungry, because even when you don't think other people are seeing or feeling that passion and that hunger, they do, and it might not, I guess, show its benefits straight away. Like, you might not get that success straight away, or you might have no matter how hard you're trying, the ideas might not break through, but you eventually one will, and then it's all worth it, I think. Yeah, so passion and hunger is the key thing. I think the other thing is, like, when I've met some young creatives and they've shown me their books, they'll often have lots of stuff in there. And they'll have some really good ideas, but they'll have some ideas that they're probably a lot weaker. And when they show me their book, they even know, they say, oh, I've got some of these other ideas, but they're not very good. And I'm like, why are they in there? And they said, oh, because I don't have that many things. So I just thought it's better to have more than less. And I was like, it's not. Like, your worst ideas bring down your best ideas. So my advice to all the young creators is always like, if you've only got 3 cracking ideas, just have 3 cracking ideas. If you have 3 cracking ideas and 2 bad or average ones, they will make your better ones look not as good. So only have your best work in your book. Like, always present yourself in your best possible way. Never try and pad it out with stuff that you think will be filler, because it doesn't do anything. Yeah.
Now, this is around the world of production, so I'd be remiss not to ask some production questions, and I know we're getting close for time, so let's do these a little quicker. Integration of production. When do you like to bring the producers in to the start of the creative process?
Depending on the size of the job, like if it's a smaller job, usually the producers will sort of come in at the point where a concept is approved and the client signed it off, and we start rolling it out. But if we're working on something that's a bit bigger, has, I guess, a bigger creative opportunity, I like to get the producers involved pretty early. I encourage our creatives, even right from a briefing, if they've got a brief that's sort of medium to large size, where they're going to be producing, maybe an integrated campaign or a piece of AV that will have a decent amount of spend behind it. Off the back of the brief, and when they start working on the ideas, I'll often encourage them to, along the way, speak to the producer that we know is going to be working on it, just to sense check stuff, just to go, are we thinking in the realms of impossibility here with some of the ideas we're having, and almost to get a little bit of a sense check from the producer to go, here's kind of some rough guardrails of the realm of where we can probably realistically end up based on the budget and all that type of thing. And it's not necessarily, like, I guess, restricting creativity. It's just for them to have in the back of their mind to go, okay, that's good to know when they're working through the ideas. Yeah, we've got some amazing producers in here, and they just add value. Like, so I'll whether the creatives have engaged them along the way, they'll usually be in the first creative review, the all-in review, not the CD reviews, but they'll come into that review, and they might not say anything in that meeting. They might have an input at that point because it's obviously first round ideas, but it's good to have them in there. And because we do have such great producers, often off their own bat, they'll go away, and if it is an idea that might be to do with animation, or it's an idea that has some kind of thing that we're trying to maybe build, and we're going to be making something, or if it's a beautiful piece of storytelling for film, they'll go away and start to just have some conversations, maybe look at some who's some good production or directors could be, start exploring animation houses, who's been doing great work, start to get a bit of a feel for the kinds of people we might need to utilize to bring something to life that we might need to build. And like I said, they'll just do that. It's not like we've tasked them that brief. They will just automatically just start to get those balls rolling. So then when you do get to that point where we've shown the client's going, we love this, let's make it, they're already rolling. They've already got that ball rolling, and they can go, right, creators, here's some of the stuff I've been thinking and working on, and what do you think? And then away they go from there. And the good producers, like, they hold such great relationships with all the production companies, especially in the world of film. Like if we've got a cracking script, but we know we don't have a huge amount of budget because we just don't. If it's an idea that we just know that a good director will love, and it might be a director that's usually out of that ballpark of budget, that relationship with that production company can get that script in front of that director, and often they will be like, this is a great script, I'll do it because I just want to make it, because they're a creative too. When they see something that they love, they just they'll be like, I'll make this work because I just love it, and that happens. Yeah, it happens a lot.
What about the qualities of a great agency producer? Can you give me one or two qualities that you think are just a must-have?
Yeah, I think the first one is just cool, calm, and collected. It's amazing. I've been in many situations along the way where we've had campaigns that have been, as you do with any really big idea, it can live and die about 4 or 5 times. But the producers just seem to be like, they're that kind of calm and steady influence where they go, it's okay, we'll try this, we'll try that, and they might be literally coming down to like the final hour that we need a permit, and they'll be like, it's okay, we'll get back soon, I'll follow up. Like it's just this calmness that you just need, because everybody else is, I guess, a little hectic, but they're like what's that metaphor? Like they're a duck above water, but the legs are going 100 miles an hour underneath. So I think that's really important. I also think the producers are often tasked with those really often tough conversations. They can be the ones that in a meeting with the client, or quite a senior clients, will have to have those conversations where they need to have that grace and diplomacy around the realities of what potentially the client wants, but the realities of what we have to work with, and where we will actually be. And again, great producers just seem to just effortlessly have that skill set. I myself still learn a lot from just watching the way that they handle those conversations, because it's almost matter of fact more than, I guess, sugarcoating anything. It's just here's the realities of the situation, but it's done in a way that's just it's not aggressive. And they also, I don't envy being. I wouldn't. I guess I couldn't be a producer, because you're kind of like that middle person in between. You're in between the creatives, the business management, and then you've got the clients, and you've got to navigate all of those things. You've got these creative, hungry, angry creative team who really want to make something, and always want it to be as best as possible and push things as far as you can. So they're kind of gently, softly keeping them happy. And then you've got probably business management who want to know absolutely everything that's going on every second of every day, and wanting to be updated. And then I guess you've got the pressure of the clients who just, they're investing a lot of money, and they want to make sure that, everything all the decisions that are being made, and the directors that we're using, and they want to have trust and comfort and all that kind of thing. And obviously, the senior team provide that too, but a lot of that falls as well on the shoulders of the producer, especially on the shoot, because they're the ones that are, everything has to be right. All the things that have been spoken about, all of the things that the producer nodded their head to and said, we have to have this, have to have that. Yep. Like, yeah. Like I said, I don't envy the producers, but I admire them massively.
Last question before we wrap up. Obviously, you get to work with a lot of other creative people outside of the agency when we're talking with production companies. So we could be talking about directors or photographers, people who are helping to elevate your idea. Let's talk about directors in particular in the film aspect. Qualities of a great director in this ad game. What do you think they are, and makes them stand out in this creative environment?
Yeah, it's hard to put a checklist on what makes a good director, but I think the great directors, like when you get to that amazing moment where you've got a script that's being approved, and you have that fun part of now trying to find the director that's going to bring that extra bit of magic to it. When you're looking through the different folios and looking at the work that they've done, it's just the best directors just seem to have this this way of bringing their unique perspective to an idea and making it unforgettable. And it's hard to put into words why. You just watch what they've done and you go, wow, like they've just brought this magic. And I often have this feeling where I watch something, especially when I'm assessing which director I think might be right, and I often imagine what the brief or what the script was that they were given, and then try to see how they then brought that to life. And I think for me, the best directors, you can see that they were you can see this, obviously having a great script helps at the beginning, that always helps. And the best directors do get the best scripts too, which helps too. But you can clearly see how they've elevated it. They've taken the script and gone, here's your vision and here's my vision on top of that. And then it's just, and I've used this word a lot, I've just elevated it to a place where it's become magical. It's special. And I think that sets them apart from, maybe some other directors where you might look at their reels and you can see that they might, the scripts that they've been given, they've brought them to life in a way where you go, okay, like that's probably the way the creative team imagined it. And maybe nothing beyond that. I don't know. But the best directors take something and then they add something that the creative team, because they're amazing creatives in their own right, they just add that extra, how they see that idea coming to life on top of the way you see it. And then it just, the two combined powers of a great creative team and a great director, and those things collide and you just get this epic thing. And it can often just be really a really simple script too, but just that Apple ad for, I think it won the Grand Prix for film last year. I think it was called Leon, with the little, the guy who was babysitting the lizard. And he thought the lizard had died, and he'd sent a text message to the owners, and then the lizard came to life again. And then he unsent the message because it was a new unsend text message feature. Like, that ad is so simple, but like the crafting of every single element of it, of like the talent, what they were wearing, the environment that the scene was shot, the way they controlled the light, the way they framed everything, like it was, and then the music that comes in when the lizard comes back to life. Like, it's all, everything about it is just so carefully considered and just perfect. You look at that ad and you go, that could have been done terribly. But it wasn't, because it was a great director.
All right, Matt. So great to chat with you, mate, and great, I'm sure, for you to be able to reflect on the career that you've had, and especially with where you're at now at TBWA.
Yeah. I've been really lucky at TBWA to work with some amazing people. As I said, I've been here nearly 11 years, from a budding senior art director and now to ECD. And I think, a lot of people move around, and I think it's almost rare now to have been an agency for this long. And it just comes down to the fact that I've got some amazing people around me that have helped me and guided me and given me that confidence and support all along the way. And it would be remiss of me not to mention Paul, my CC. I've mentioned a couple of times, but not in this capacity. Like, he's such a massive influence, I guess, in my development as a creative, and his guidance along the way. His personal and creative development is a huge passion of his, and I've been a lucky recipient of that, I should say, for 10 and a bit years. And then also Ricky Meldrum, who you would have worked with back in the day. I've worked side by side with her, and led big accounts. And she's a phenomenal creative. She's the MD, but she's a phenomenal creative in her own right. And she's been awesome for me. And also Kimberly Wellesley, the CEO. She's a phenomenal person to have and be able to knock on the door and have conversations with her. I have monthly mentor sessions with her now as a very senior leader. So as I said, it's hard for me to fail when you've got such amazing people around you and supporting your decisions and teaching me every day. So I'm very, 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 very thankful for what they've done for me.
Mate, can I just say thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights with us. It's been invaluable hearing your journey. It's been invaluable hearing about your lessons along the way, also your passion for the craft and the industry that you're in. It's evident, particularly in the way that you talk and the way you discuss certain elements and people. Thank you very much, mate. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Brendan. Appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.
Well, that's it for today. I'll make the logo bigger. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've shared some insights and stories that I hope you found useful. Whether you're just getting started or diving deeper into ad production, there's always more to explore. Keep listening, stay curious, and we'll be back soon with some more from the world of production. Take care until then.